Welcome to the Been There, Sold That podcast, where you can take away sales and business tips to grow your business efficiently, effectively, and profitably. Take it away, Brianna Henley and Phil Whitebloom.
Well, hello, Phil. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So I have a client, actually more than one client, that's why there's almost plural there, clients that their sales are okay, but they're not keeping up. Do you have any clients like that in achievement business coaching where figuring out what you got to do to increase your sales in a relatively short period of time? Is that possible from your perspective and the business side?
That's actually one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was specifically doubling your revenue this month. And I know you and I have talked about 10x is easier than 2x, right? We've talked about that book, and that book is fantastic. Well, how else do you do that? You got to start somewhere. So sometimes when we're sitting here as a business owner, we know that we want to increase sales. That's something that's important to us. And what I found in talking to my clients specifically, and I don't know if you found this, Phil, is when they say, yes, I want to increase my sales, I think it's a great idea, there needs to be additional actions that are taken either by the business owner or the sales folks. And sometimes what comes back is we don't have the time to do it. So yes, I want more revenue, and I don't have the time to put forth what needs to happen, the time, the energy, resources, whether it's money or something else, in order to move forward with doubling the revenue. So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to everybody about today, because I'm here to tell you that you can do it. And sometimes you're going to be surprised how easy it actually is, that it's not necessarily more time, more energy. There's a piece of that. It's being targeted and specific with how you're using your time, your money, and the rest of your resources, to include your staff. So, are you finding that to be the case with your clientele, Phil?
Yes. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. And it's being so engaged and overwhelmed on a regular basis, just keeping the business going, especially if you're a very small business or a solopreneur where you're doing all of the things, that you get so busy doing all of things that you're not doing the things that could do exactly what you're talking about, which is to do the right thing to get more customers and more clients right now.
And again, when it comes down to just taking that time, setting time just to planning on who do I know can potentially help me, who can help me with whatever it is that we're kind of feeling that there's a gap. And the other piece to that is, what else do I need to be doing? Do I need to be streamlining processes? Do I need to be slowing things down a little bit in my business? So kind of like the slow down to speed up, buttoning certain sales processes. You, Phil, we just had a conversation about a particular offering and service that you have, and it wasn't working online. You couldn't get it to work through collecting credit card information. So you adjusted some things, you brought on a new service, and there's a little glitch. Once you get that glitch taken care of, it's going to be smooth sailing and you're not going to have an issue. And as you're going through this process, you feel like you're beating your head against the wall, that these things pop up and there's people that can help. And it's very frustrating as you're going through it. So if every day is looking like that, growing your revenue, specifically within a month, doubling, just seems overwhelming, an overwhelming task.
It's going to come back down to, you talk about time blocking a lot, But it's even more than that. It's really knowing what you need to do or you should do to achieve that double. It's not so much about the time blocking in this case. You just need to make sure you set aside time to do it properly. But it is about how you do it, right? To what do you have to do? If you're going to get in the car, you know how you have to start your car.
Yes.
Right? Your car's not going anywhere unless you started it. But once you got it started, if you don't know where you're going to go, you're never going to get there. So you know where you're going to go. And even if there's an accident or something in the way, you could detour around to get to your destination. But you got to get there. And when you go, how often do you get in your car and say, well, where am I going to go? Now that you're in there, never. You always know where you're going to go. So you always know where you're going to go. And how you're going to get there, though, does change, especially if they live in the geographies that you and I live in. So, there's always something disrupting traffic. So what's the magic here, Brianna? How do you know where you need to go to get to double your revenue in a month?
Yeah. So first of all, you actually need to set time aside to plan.
Good plan.
Yes. To actually plan and figure out what you need to put into place. So if that's potentially hiring somebody else, having a type of software service that's going to help you to maybe sit down and write down the people that you should be talking to, that'll help you move to that next step. That piece is huge. Just sitting down and putting a plan together. The next piece to that is really thinking about, okay, who else do I potentially need to bring on board? Is it a VA to help me with some things that just aren't working right?
What is a VA?
So a VA is a virtual assistant. Yeah. Are there some things that are slipping through the cracks that I am unable to handle? Is that something that I should be doing and investing in? Okay. The other piece is taking a look at where you're getting your clients from. If you are getting your clients from networking with a particular group and you're not spending all of your time or most of your time with that particular group or other groups like it, then start changing course and figuring out where you need to be based upon where those events are being held. So you and I have talked about that before. If you're sitting in a room full of individual contributors who are potential salespeople for bigger companies and they don't want your service, they don't need your service, should that be the room that you're sitting in all the time? If you're finding that you're sitting in that room all the time, if the answer is no, then figure out which room you should be sitting in and start putting that into your schedule so you're sitting in a different room with people who are your true client avatars.
Right.
Right?
Or know your
client avatar who can refer you.
Right.
Yes. And then another piece to that is if you do have all your things buttoned up and you're in the place where you need to be, meaning you're ready and prepared to bring on new business, there's just not any business walking in the door, then think about advertising. Your advertising and your marketing. We should be, as small businesses, spending 10% on average on advertising and marketing. Think about that. 10%. And you and I, Phil, have read a book called Outrageous Marketing by Joe Vitale. And one of the things that he talks about is outrageous marketing and different tools and techniques that you can use. So if you're not comfortable or familiar with marketing or advertising and you need to pick somebody else's brain or read a book about it so you feel comfortable on how you're going to move forward, then do that. Plan that. Think about what you're going to be doing so any marketing that you do actually makes sense and bring people to your door. So again, that is something that Phil and I are actively doing. So you're going to be seeing that a little bit more as we move into the year and as we move forward. So that's something that's been huge for us.
we're talking right now about, doubling your revenue in a month. The key here, though, is just not for this month. It's for next month and the following months. And it doesn't necessarily mean doubling. That would be great if you could get that done. And if you are doing that, we'd love you to be a podcast guest right here so you could tell everybody else how you do that. So we'll tell you how to get in touch with us in a little while. But what we're talking about doing, so if you have multiple ways of generating revenue into your business, each one of them is going to be a component of that. For example, Brianna and I both I'm going to just mention 3 ways right now that involve other people. One is we each have our own one-to-one business. So there's 2 right there. She's got hers with Achievement Business Coaching, and I have mine with Been There Consulting Services. Then we have our other business where we coach clients together. And so this is a 3rd way. And then the 4th way, and actually we each have our own group coaching group. So we could say 4 or 5 between the 2 of us. So how do you double the amount of members coming to each one of these different things? And even though you may have one accomplishment for one of those, next month, focus on the other one, because the one's going to be running. Just keep doing the right things. You always have to keep your foot on the gas, right? There's no such thing as letting it coast, because coast is like coasting uphill. You just keep slowing down until you eventually stop.
And the other piece is looking at those low-hanging options. So the low-hanging fruit. And I know you guys have heard about that all the time. Look in your business to see what invoices are currently sitting out there for clients who haven't paid yet. Do you need to follow up on those so you can get some money back into your company? Are there proposals that you've put out that you haven't followed up on? People are busy. It's okay if you follow up with people. And we've talked about that in the past. Another thing is, are there meetings that you haven't scheduled, or you haven't created space to schedule meetings with key people, whether they're strategic partners or anyone else? And that is important, because we should have a list of who our strategic partners are. And those are people that we should be touching base with and curating those relationships. So we are top of mind for them and they're top of mind for us. And that's actually something through the Achievement Accelerator Bootcamp, the short-term massive action, that I touch on and put a great deal of thought and energy into how to set that up and get that system put together for somebody who's an individual contributor or a small business owner, so they know how to better spend their time, spend their energy, spend their resources to where it actually matters and hits the bottom line. And then to that point, it's pretty interesting, the opportunities that are around us. We are in the Baltimore, DC, Northern Virginia corridor, and we have so many opportunities here. So if somebody says, I don't have any business, I'm gonna push back and question, because there are so many people here in your little network. If you don't have business, there's so many other networks and so many people. Phil and I live about 45 minutes away from each other. We have people in the same network, and we have people that we know that don't know Phil by his name, don't know Phil by his face, and vice versa with me. Even though we are lucky enough that some places that we go, they see one and they talk about the other. We're very fortunate in that way, but there's still so many people that don't know us. So for somebody to say, oh, my network's not big enough, well, you can get your network bigger. And we've got this government component for your services that you can apply online, who are actually looking for small businesses. So there's so many opportunities to double your revenue within a month, within a year, to get to that place where you want to go. You just have to sit and think and plan those things out. And then once you have that plan, you execute and you go. And that's what Phil and I have been doing with all the different lines of revenue that we have and different products and services that we have. It's just sitting down, taking that time to plan it, execute it, and go.
That's great. And all of it takes effort. So there's nothing easy about it. It doesn't mean it's difficult when I say it's not easy. But it takes work, right? So not that the opposite of easy is not always difficult. It
Yeah.
means it takes work. I mean, you could get out there and network. It's not hard to network. It's just it's a commitment. And I will. I'm happy to share with all of you. In the 40 plus years that I was in the corporate world, and where I live right now, I didn't have a local network when I went to start my business because my business was North America, Latin America, and I work with people from all over the world. And even when I was running the government business for a few different companies over the better part of 30 years, the government, which is very heavily in this area that Brianna just outlined, is still not the network for the business that we're doing today. And so I started basically with scratch. So, from the time this business was formulated, which is coming up on 2 years for the sales coaching specifically, my network has gone from virtually zero to about 1,000 people locally.
Yeah, and I'm sitting in the same spot. When I was in a totally different area and section, and when I went into Baltimore, it was all new. And you just started by showing up to networking events, getting to know people, scheduling one-to-ones, having coffees, and before you know it, you've amassed a number of people that you're connected to, and they like you, you like them, and you figure out how to work with each other and how to refer each other. So, Phil, I wanted to tell you something just specifically to this point. I had a project that I needed to take care of for payroll. So, bringing employees on to my company. And one of the things that I had to get was a work permit. So, I had this entire list of things that I needed to do from my payroll person. And the top thing that was holding me back was a work permit. So I did that this weekend. Would you like to know how long it took me to get it done?
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get that work permit done?
It took me 30 seconds.
Whoa. Did you do it right?
I did. So to your point, it's not necessarily hard work. It just takes effort. It takes effort to sit down and walk through the steps. Some of those steps might be difficult. That might be the case. However, the majority of it, if you're writing down steps as part of your plan and you've written everything down that needs to be taken care of, and you can just dedicate time to go down your list and check those boxes off, then you're going to be able to do what you need to do to move forward. So I want to encourage everybody here listening to this. If there's something big or even something small that you want to get done or you want to do, it's as easy as creating that plan, putting the steps down of what you need to be doing to move it forward, and actually putting the effort in and following through on that steps. It's the same as with a book. For you, Phil, you've had some ups and downs, but at the end of the day, you followed the steps, you wrote the book, and you're just doing what needs to be done to get it moving forward. Is it as quickly as you would have liked for it to be?
No, but it's right.
and it's going to be done right. So again, some things take a little bit of time. It's keeping your focus and that effort in there. So if anybody says, there's no way I can double my revenue in a month, yes, you can. You absolutely can.
I was going to ask you that before and you just did it, but I'm going to ask you to repeat it. Here's the closing for this. Your bullet points for doubling your revenue in a month. If you were talking in bullet points, talk away.
Okay. So what they are is, first of all, write down everything that you need to be doing for your business that you're not currently doing right now. So take the time, create time, and get that plan together. Because what I found is that people don't want to grow because they're discombobulated and they feel like they're reacting to everything. So take the time to sit down and figure out what needs to be put in place so that you're not putting out fires all the time and running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, figure out who you need to hire or what type of software system that can take some of those stressors off of you. So we talked about eliminate, delegate, and automate in previous podcasts. This is one of those places where you figure out, maybe I'm not the right person to be doing it because I'm holding up the works. Maybe I need to hand that off to somebody else or automate that through a system. The third thing would be really focusing on if you are sitting in the right space as far as your network is concerned. Are you in front of the right people? Are you networking with the right people? If you're finding that your client avatar isn't what you thought, and that's not bringing in business, then you need to be sitting in different places. You need to change that up. The next thing is advertising. So I had mentioned about advertising. You should be putting at least 10% of your revenue into advertising and marketing. And somebody would say, but how do I know what's working and what's not? How do I know? That's always the question. How do I know? How do I know? And I mentioned about a book by Joe Vitale to take a look at that, Outrageous Marketing. And again, put information out there where your client avatar is, where they're sitting. And then the next and last thing is low-hanging fruit. Where do you have money sitting around and you haven't cleaned it up? Whether by sending out invoices, whether by sending out or following up on proposals, whether by having meetings with strategic partners that you should be curating relationships with and touching base with regularly. So those are the things, but it all starts with creating that time and space so you can actually plan it out. Business owners have to have time and space to plan and think. It has to happen. So create that time and space and you will be amazed at what happens in your business, the changes that are made.
Great. Those are big bullet points, but it's all good information.
They're huge bullet points.
Yeah. So as we have a wrap up for this session, how does everybody get a hold of us?
So you can reach us by going to BeenThereSoldThat.com, and that is our podcast website. And there's actually places to reach me, which goes to achievementcoaching.com. You can do a one-to-one with me. You can touch base. You can email. And then also to Phil. Phil, we got to update your picture in there. So go to BeenThereCS.com and you can email him. You can also reach out to him and set up a one-to-one. Until then.
Good selling.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.